Episode 8, Ghosts of the Past. The shadow was gone, but Black Hollow's eerie calm felt more like an unsettling silence than a long-awaited peace. Eli lingered a few days in town after the ritual, helping the townsfolk recover from the ordeal and searching for any trace of lingering darkness. Yet, despite the apparent victory, he found himself haunted by questions that had yet to be answered. The morning he was set to leave, a knock on his door interrupted his final moments of packing. He opened it to find Evelyn standing there, her face solemn, holding a tattered letter in her hands. "This just showed up," she said, a faint tremor in her voice. "It's addressed to you, but I have no idea who sent it." Eli took the letter carefully, eyeing the yellowed paper and the smeared ink. The envelope bore no postage stamp, and the writing was jagged like it had been written in haste or by someone with an unsteady hand. He glanced back up at Evelyn, but she only shook her head, signaling she knew as little as he did. He opened the letter, the paper's crinkle piercing the quiet morning air. The message inside was brief, each word dripping with urgency. "Eli, you severed the shadow, but you did not end its reign. The hollow holds secrets buried deeper than you know. Seek the Whispering Woods, and beware the ghosts that guard it." The letter was unsigned, and the handwriting was unfamiliar. Eli felt a chill snake up his spine as he reread the message. Whispering Woods, he'd heard of them only in passing from townsfolk who refused to discuss the area further, as though the mere mention could invite a curse. Evelyn studied his face, her expression tense. "What does it say?" He passed her the letter, watching her reaction as she read. Her face paled as she looked back up at him, eyes wide. "The Whispering Woods, that place is forbidden. People who go in rarely come out the same, if they come out at all." Eli's mind raced. Despite the shadow's banishment, something darker lingered in Black Hollow's past. The woods had held meaning for the founders of the town. He had read it in the old records, a place whispered about in veiled words. If there was any chance the letter was right, he couldn't leave yet. Not until he understood what secrets were buried there. "I have to go," Eli said, voice steady. "There's something in those woods that might explain why the shadow was bound here to begin with." Evelyn nodded reluctantly, her gaze serious. "Then I'm coming with you. If there's still danger out there, I'm not letting you face it alone." As they walked toward the edge of the forest, an unnatural stillness seemed to settle over Black Hollow. The once familiar paths grew twisted and ominous as they entered the deeper woods. Evelyn kept her hand on her amulet, muttering faint incantations under her breath as they trudged forward. It wasn't long before they encountered the first signs that they were being watched. Shadows flitted at the edge of their vision, and Eli could swear he heard faint whispers carried on the wind, like ghostly voices calling out his name. The Whispering Woods lived up to their reputation. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing where the trees grew sparse. In the center, a stone structure jutted from the earth, an ancient, crumbling altar similar to the one they'd used for the severance ritual. Surrounding it were stone pillars engraved with symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. Evelyn gasped, recognition dawning in her eyes. These symbols, they're from the earliest days of Black Hollow. This must have been one of the founders' sanctuaries. As they approached, the whispers grew louder, filling Eli's mind with fragments of voices, some pleading, others angry, all desperate to be heard. He reached out to touch the altar, and as his fingers brushed the cold stone, a surge of energy pulsed through him, pulling him into a vision. He found himself standing in the clearing, but it was different. The trees were full and lush, the air warm and fragrant. In front of him, he saw 3 figures, each wearing long robes and carrying torches, their faces obscured by shadows. They chanted in a language he didn't recognize, and as they did, a dark mist began to rise from the ground, swirling around the altar. He watched as the mist coalesced, forming a shape, a creature with hollow eyes and twisted limbs. It seemed to writhe in agony, bound to the altar by the chanting figures. "We bind you, keeper of secrets," one of the figures intoned. "We trap you here, beneath the hollow, to protect our home. You are cursed to remain until the blood of 3 returns to sever you." The vision blurred, and Eli found himself back in the clearing, his head spinning. Evelyn steadied him, her face etched with concern. "What did you see?" she asked quietly. He took a deep breath, his mind reeling. The Founders, they didn't just bind the shadow. They created it, somehow, from something older, something meant to guard a secret. Evelyn's brow furrowed as she processed his words. A guardian, but a guardian of what? Before he could answer, the ground beneath the altar began to tremble. A hollow voice, laced with malice, echoed through the clearing. "You are not welcome here." The shadowy figure from his vision appeared at the edge of the clearing, its hollow eyes fixed on Eli. It moved slowly, its body flickering and shifting as if it were struggling to hold its shape. Eli felt a familiar dread settle over him, but he forced himself to stand his ground. "We're here to uncover the truth," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever you're guarding, it's time we knew." The figure snarled, its voice low and gravelly. "The truth is not yours to know. Leave, or face the curse of the Hollow." Evelyn stepped forward, holding up her amulet. "We've severed your hold over this town. The curse is broken." The figure's form wavered, and for a moment Eli thought it might disappear. But then it steadied itself, fixing them with a malevolent glare. The curse was only the beginning. The true darkness lies beneath. The ground split open in front of the altar, revealing a narrow stone staircase, descending into darkness. A foul, musty odor wafted up from below, filling the air with a sense of decay and foreboding. Eli and Evelyn exchanged a glance, both understanding the silent agreement between them. Whatever lay below, they had to confront it. They couldn't leave Black Hollow until they had uncovered the full truth. They descended the staircase, each step taking them deeper into the cold, damp earth. The walls were lined with ancient carvings, depicting scenes of ritual and sacrifice, of dark creatures bound and buried beneath the ground. The further they went, the more oppressive the air became, weighing down on them like a suffocating shroud. At the bottom of the stairs, they entered a vast underground chamber, dimly lit by the flickering glow of old torches mounted on the walls. In the center of the room stood a stone pedestal, upon which rested a dark, crystal-like object. It pulsed with a faint red light, casting eerie shadows across the room. Evelyn approached it cautiously, her voice barely a whisper. This must be the heart of the curse." As she spoke, the shadows in the room seemed to gather, coalescing into a figure that loomed over the pedestal, its hollow eyes fixed on them. "This is the core of the Hollow," it said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "The source of all that you fear." Eli felt his blood run cold as he looked at the crystal, realizing that it held the essence of the shadow itself, bound and contained for centuries. He understood now. The Founders had trapped the creature here, binding it to the town to protect whatever dark secrets lay buried in Black Hollow. "We can't leave this here," he said, glancing at Evelyn. "If we destroy it, we might finally free Black Hollow from this darkness." Evelyn hesitated, her gaze fixed on the crystal. But what if destroying it unleashes something worse? The Founders might have had a reason to keep it contained. As they debated, the figure's voice grew stronger, mocking them. "You cannot destroy me. I am bound to this place, to the Hollow itself. My existence is eternal." Eli clenched his fists, his mind racing. He knew that simply leaving the crystal would allow the darkness to fester, but he couldn't risk unleashing something even worse. He had to find a way to neutralize it without endangering the town. Then an idea struck him. "Evelyn," he said, his voice calm but resolute, "what if we transfer the curse? Bind it to something smaller, something we can bury away from the town?" Then an idea struck him. "Evelyn," he said, his voice calm but resolute, "what if we transfer the curse? Bind it to something smaller, something we can bury away from the town?" Evelyn considered his suggestion, her expression grim. "It's risky, but it might work. We'd need something strong enough to contain the curse, something that could hold its power." She glanced around the chamber, her eyes settling on a small stone box tucked into a niche in the wall. She retrieved it, inspecting the intricate carvings that covered its surface. This might be enough. With a deep breath, they began the ritual, chanting words of binding as they placed the crystal into the stone box. The shadows in the chamber writhed and screamed, their voices rising in a cacophony of rage and despair. Eli felt the darkness pressing in on him, clawing at his mind, but he held firm, focusing on the task at hand. Finally, with one last chant, the lid snapped shut, and the shadows dissipated, leaving the chamber silent once more. Evelyn held the box, her face pale but determined. "We'll take this far from Black Hollow, bury it where no one will ever find it." As they made their way back to the surface, Eli felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The curse was contained, the darkness bound and buried where it could no longer harm the town. But as they left the Whispering Woods, he couldn't shake the feeling that Black Hollow's mysteries were far from over. The founders had created something monstrous, and while they had bound it, they had left a legacy of secrets that could still haunt the town. For now, though, he was content to leave those secrets buried, deep beneath the hollow, where they belonged. End of episode 8.